the distant future, humanity clung to survival by its fingertips. Earth was no longer the blue-green jewel it once had been. Centuries of greed, war, and environmental collapse had left it a barren wasteland. Its skies choked with ash, its oceans dried up, and its soil unable to grow food. Humanity's only hope lay among the stars, on distant planets where life still thrived. But those planets were not uninhabited. They belonged to colonies that often refused to share their resources with dying Earth. It was in this desperate time that the Eclipse was born, a colossal warship unlike anything ever constructed. Spanning miles across, the ship bristled with weapons capable of obliterating entire planets. It wasn't just a vessel, it was a statement, a warning to anyone who dared defy Earth's demands. And at its helm stood Admiral Cale Voss, a man whose once idealistic heart had hardened under the weight of responsibility. But while the Eclipse symbolized power, it also carried secrets buried deep within its core, known only to a few. Among them was Dr. Elira Nix, the brilliant scientist who had helped design the ship's planet-destroying technology. She walked the corridors of the Eclipse like a ghost, haunted by guilt over what she had created. Then, there was Captain Rin, Solus, a young officer torn between loyalty to Admiral Voss and his growing doubts about humanity's methods. The stage was set for the rise of the Leviathan. Chapter 1. Ashes of Earth. The story began on Earth, or what remained of it. Once vibrant cities now lay in ruins, their skeletal remains swallowed by sandstorms and toxic rain. Refugees wandered aimlessly, searching for scraps of food or clean water. Billions had already perished, and billions more teetered on the edge of starvation. The United Earth Council, the last governing body standing, met in an underground bunker beneath the ruins of New York City. "We cannot continue like this," said Council Leader Mara Drexel, her voice echoing through the dimly lit chamber. Her face was gaunt, her eyes hollow from years of sleepless nights. "Our colonies are hoarding resources. They refuse to send aid unless we meet their impossible demands. And yet we have no leverage," replied General Harlan Greaves, commander of what little remained of Earth's military forces. "They know we're weak. If we don't act soon, we'll lose everything." Council Leader Drexel leaned forward, her fingers tapping rhythmically against the table. "Then it settled. The Eclipse will launch its maiden mission immediately. Admiral Voss has assured me it is ready." Murmurs rippled through the room. Some council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while others nodded grimly. All knew what the Eclipse represented. Not just strength, but fear. Fear would be the weapon that brought the colonies back in line. Far above the bunker, docked in orbit around Earth, the Eclipse loomed large against the blackness of space. Its sleek, metallic hull gleamed faintly in the light of the dying sun. Inside, Admiral Cale Voss paced the command deck, his boots clicking softly against the polished floor. He stared out at the vast expanse of stars, his jaw clenched tightly. "Are you certain about this, sir?" asked Captain Rin Solus, standing nearby. His tone was respectful but laced with unease. "Destroying an entire planet, it seems extreme." Admiral Voss turned sharply, his piercing gray eyes locking onto Solus. "Extreme measures are required in desperate times, Captain. These colonies think they can defy us without consequence. We must show them otherwise." Solus swallowed hard, but said nothing. Deep down he wanted to argue, to question whether such destruction was truly necessary. But he held his tongue. Questioning orders could mean mutiny, and mutiny meant death. Chapter 2. The first target, the Eclipse. Its destination was a colony world called Elysia Prime. Nestled in the habitable zone of a distant star, Elysia Prime was a paradise compared to Earth. Its lush forests stretched endlessly, its rivers sparkled under twin suns, and its people lived in relative peace. For decades they had resisted sending resources to Earth, claiming they needed every scrap to sustain themselves. As the Eclipse approached, Elysia Prime's leaders scrambled to prepare a defense. Their small fleet of outdated ships gathered near the planet's atmosphere, a pitiful attempt to protect their home. Messages poured into the eclipse, pleading for mercy. "This is Governor Leora Kane of Elysia Prime," came a voice over the comms. "Please, reconsider your actions. We are willing to negotiate. Destroying our world will accomplish nothing." Admiral Voss listened impassively from his chair on the command deck. When the message ended, he glanced at Dr. Elira Nix, who stood silently nearby. She avoided his gaze, her hands trembling slightly. "What do you think, Doctor?" Voss asked, his voice cold. "Should we listen to their cries?" Nix hesitated before answering. I don't know, sir. Maybe negotiation. They've had their chance," Voss interrupted, cutting her off. Turning to the crew, he barked, "Prepare the primary weapon." Captain Solis felt his stomach churn as the order was relayed. Around him, officers moved, with mechanical efficiency, entering coordinates and charging the weapon systems. On the main view screen, Elysia Prime appeared serene, oblivious to the doom descending upon it. Minutes later, the countdown began. "Firing in 10 seconds, announced one of the technicians. 9, 8. Dr. Nix closed her eyes. Her fists clenched so tightly her nails dug into her palms. Captain Solis gripped the railing, his knuckles white. Admiral Voss sat motionless, his expression unreadable. 3, 2, 1, fire. A blinding beam shot forth from the eclipse, slicing through space like a blade. It struck Elysia Prime with devastating force, tearing through its atmosphere and igniting massive explosions. Within moments, the planet transformed into a fiery inferno. Trees burned, oceans boiled, and cities crumbled into dust. By the time the beam faded, Elysia Prime was unrecognizable, a barren wasteland devoid of life. Silence filled the command deck as the crew processed what they had just witnessed. Some looked away, unable to bear the sight. Others stared numbly at the screen, their faces pale. Only Admiral Voss seemed unfazed. "It is done," he declared, rising from his seat. "Send a message to all remaining colonies. Resist us again, and this will be your fate." Chapter 3. Secrets unveiled later that evening. Dr. Nix retreated to her quarters, her mind racing. Images of Elysia Prime's destruction replayed in her head, each frame more horrifying than the last. How could she have let this happen? She had designed the weapon, knowing full well what it was capable of. Guilt weighed heavily on her shoulders, threatening to crush her entirely. As she sat at her desk, staring blankly at the wall, her terminal beeped. Curious, she activated it, revealing a stream of encrypted data sent directly from Earth's Council chambers. Intrigued, she decrypted the files, her breath catching as she read their contents. The attack on Elysia Prime hadn't been about resources. It had been a test run. The Council planned to use the eclipse to cleanse entire star systems, wiping out any opposition to their rule. Billions would die, not because they posed a threat, but simply because they existed. Nix's hands shook as she copied the files onto a secure drive. She couldn't keep this information to herself, but whom could she trust? Admiral Voss was loyal to the Council, and most of the crew followed orders without question. There was only one person she could turn to, Captain Rin. Solis. Summoning her courage, she headed to Solis's quarters. When he opened the door, surprise flickered across his face. "Doctor, is something wrong?" "I need to show you something," she whispered urgently. "Something important." Inside, she played the decrypted files for him, watching as realization dawned on his face. This is monstrous," he murmured, running a hand through his hair. "We can't let them do this." "But how do we stop them?" Nix asked, her voice trembling. "If we go public, they'll silence us before we even get a word out." Solis fell silent, his mind working furiously. Finally, he spoke. "We wait. Gather evidence. Find allies if we can. But whatever happens, we can't let them destroy another planet." For the first time since the mission began, Nix felt a glimmer of hope. Together, perhaps they could find A way to change the course of history. Epilogue. Shockwaves across the galaxy. News of Elysia. Prime's destruction spread quickly, sparking outrage across the galaxy. Colonies feared humanity's wrath while others vowed revenge. In secret bunkers and hidden bases, resistance movements began to form, united by a shared goal: stopping the eclipse. But aboard the warship itself, tension simmered beneath the surface. Admiral Voss remained steadfast in his belief that ruthlessness was the key to survival. Yet cracks were forming in his crew's loyalty, cracks that would widen with every passing day. As the eclipse drifted through the void, its shadow loomed, large, a harbinger of destruction. Humanity's darkest chapter had begun, but whispers of rebellion hinted at a brighter future, if anyone dared to fight for it. The destruction of Elysia Prime sent shockwaves across the galaxy. News of the planet's annihilation spread like wildfire, carried by terrified survivors who had fled before the eclipse arrived. Colonies that once stood defiant now trembled at the thought of facing humanity's wrath. Some chose submission, sending resources back to Earth in hopes of avoiding a similar fate. Others, however, refused to bow. These worlds began uniting under a mysterious alien alliance led by a charismatic figure known only as the Arbiter. Meanwhile, aboard the Eclipse, tensions simmered just beneath the surface. Admiral Kyle Voss remained steadfast in his belief that fear was the key to maintaining control. But whispers of dissent echoed through the ship's corridors, growing louder with each passing day. Captain Rin Solis and Dr. Elira Nix found themselves caught in the middle, bound by duty, yet haunted by their consciences. As the galaxy prepared for war, so too did the crew of the Eclipse, though not all were fighting for the same cause. Chapter 4. The Spark of Resistance. In the weeks following Elysia Prime's destruction, humanity's colonies fractured further. On one side stood those willing to trade freedom for survival, sending shipments of food, water, and raw materials to Earth without question. On the other side were the rebels, worlds determined to resist humanity's tyranny, even if it meant risking everything. Among these rebels was the enigmatic Arbiter, a leader whose identity remained shrouded in mystery. Some claimed the Arbiter was an ancient being, older than the stars themselves. Others believed they were a coalition of multiple species united by a single purpose: to stop humanity before it consumed the galaxy. Whatever the truth, the Arbiter's influence was undeniable. Under their guidance, rebel forces launched daring raids on human outposts, stealing supplies and intelligence. One such raid targeted Outpost Delta 7, a remote station used by the United Earth Council to monitor nearby systems. The attack came swiftly and unexpectedly. Alien ships, sleek and agile, descended upon the outpost like predators circling prey. Within minutes, the defenders were overwhelmed, and the aliens made off with valuable data, including information about the Eclipse's next target. Unbeknownst to them, this act would set the stage for a battle unlike any other. Chapter 5. Doubts and divisions back aboard the Eclipse. Captain Rin Solis struggled to reconcile his loyalty to Admiral Voss with the growing unease in his heart. He replayed the events of Elysia Prime over and over in his mind. The screams of the colonists, the blinding flash of the weapon firing, the eerie silence that followed. Each memory chipped away at his resolve, leaving him questioning whether he could continue serving a mission built on destruction. Dr. Elira Nix shared his doubts but hid them better. She buried herself in her work, pretending to analyze the Eclipse's systems while secretly searching for ways to sabotage the ship. Her guilt over creating the planet-destroying technology gnawed at her constantly, driving her to take action, even if it meant risking her life. Their secret meetings became more frequent, held late at night when most of the crew was asleep. In Solis's quarters, they pored over stolen files and schematics, plotting how to expose the Council's true intentions. They knew time was running out. The Eclipse was already en route to its next target, a lush planet called Verdantia. Whoa, can't let this happen again, Nix whispered during one such meeting, her voice trembling. Verdantia is home to billions. If we destroy it, I know. Solis interrupted, his tone firm. "But we need proof. Something undeniable that'll force people to see the truth." Nix nodded, clutching the encrypted drive containing the Council's plans. "If we can get this information off the ship, maybe someone outside will listen. Or maybe they'll kill us before we even have a chance to speak," Solus muttered darkly. Still, he didn't waver. Together, they vowed to find a way to stop the madness. Chapter 6. The Battle of Verdantias. The eclipse approached Verdantia. Admiral Voss addressed the crew from the command deck. His voice boomed through the ship's speakers, cold and unyielding. "Verdantia has ignored our demands for resources. Today we remind them, and the rest of the galaxy, that defiance comes at a cost." The crew listened silently, some nodding in agreement, others exchanging uneasy glances. Among them was Lieutenant Kara Lennox, a young pilot whose sharp instincts had earned her a place among the elite squadron tasked with escorting the eclipse. Unlike many of her peers, Lennox harbored doubts about their mission. She had grown up on a colony world and understood the desperation driving resistance against Earth. When the squadron launched toward Verdantia, they encountered something unexpected, an alien fleet lying in wait. The Arbiter's forces had anticipated the eclipse's arrival and positioned themselves strategically near a glowing nebula. When the humans entered the system, the aliens struck without warning. Explosions lit up the void as fighters clashed in chaotic dogfights. The eclipse unleashed its arsenal, tearing through enemy ships with ease. Yet for every vessel destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. The battle raged on, neither side gaining a decisive advantage. Amid the chaos, Captain Solus seized an opportunity. While monitoring the ship's systems, he noticed a critical flaw in the eclipse's targeting array, a flaw he could exploit to temporarily disable part of the weapon. Knowing he might never get another chance, he acted quickly, rerouting power and triggering a malfunction. "What's happening?" Admiral Voss demanded, noticing the disruption. "Who tampered with the systems?" Before anyone could respond, an alien missile slammed into the eclipse's hull, causing widespread damage. Alarms blared throughout the ship as crew members scrambled to contain the breach. For a moment, panic threatened to overwhelm order. "This isn't over," Voss growled, his eyes narrowing. "Find whoever's responsible for this sabotage and make them regret it." Chapter 7. Seeds of Rebellion. Despite the damage, the eclipse ultimately prevailed. Its sheer size and firepower proved too much for the alien fleet, which retreated after suffering heavy losses. As the surviving ships disappeared into hyperspace, the crew breathed a collective sigh of relief. But victory came at a cost. The eclipse's weakened state exposed vulnerabilities that hadn't been apparent before. Repairs would take time Admiral Voss didn't want to waste. Worse still, suspicion spread like wildfire among the crew. Everyone became a potential traitor in Voss's eyes, including Captain Solus and Dr. Nix. For Solus, the weight of his actions pressed heavily on his shoulders. He had managed to avoid detection for now, but he knew it was only a matter of time before Voss uncovered the truth. Nix tried to reassure him, though her own fears were evident. "We've bought some time," she said quietly. "That's all we can ask for right now." Solus shook his head. "Time won't be enough. We need allies. People willing to stand against Voss and the Council." Little did they know help might come sooner than expected. Among the wreckage left behind by the alien fleet was a damaged escape pod. When recovered, it contained a lone survivor. Humanoid alien with shimmering blue skin and piercing golden eyes. Though injured, the alien spoke haltingly in broken standard, repeating one word over and over. "Arbiter." Admiral Voss ordered the prisoner detained, intending to interrogate them later. But for Solus and Nix, the alien represented hope, a connection to the rebellion they desperately needed. Epilogue. A galaxy divided, as the eclipse limped toward a nearby repair station, the galaxy braced for what lay ahead. Humanity's reputation as merciless conquerors solidified, sparking outrage and fear in equal measure. Colonies debated whether to submit or fight, while the alien alliance regrouped, vowing to strike again. On board the warship, paranoia tightened its grip. Admiral Voss scrutinized every member of his crew, searching for signs of betrayal. Meanwhile, Solus and Nyx clung to their fragile alliance, knowing their next move could mean life or death, for themselves, and for countless others. The stage was set for a final confrontation, and as the shadows lengthened, rebellion stirred in the hearts of those brave enough to defy the Leviathan. The galaxy stood on the brink of collapse. Humanity's actions had pushed it to the edge, and the consequences were beginning to unfold. Back on Earth, riots erupted as citizens learned the truth about the Council's genocidal agenda. Refugees, starving and desperate, clashed with military forces in crumbling cities. The eclipse, once hailed as a symbol of strength, had become a monument to humanity's moral decay. Its shadow loomed not just over the stars, but over the hearts of those who served aboard it. Aboard the ship, paranoia gripped the crew. Admiral Cale Voss tightened his control, convinced that betrayal lurked around every corner. Captain Rin Solus and Dr. Elira Nyx knew their time was running out. With each passing hour, their window of opportunity to expose the Council's crimes grew smaller, yet they refused to give up. Together they prepared for one final act, a desperate gamble to stop the Leviathan once and for all. Meanwhile, the alien alliance led by the Arbiter gathered its forces for a decisive battle. They vowed to destroy the eclipse, knowing it represented the greatest threat to peace in the galaxy. As both sides prepared for war, the stage was set for humanity's Judgment Day. Chapter 8. Earth burns on Earth, chaos reigned. Protests erupted in every major city as people demanded answers about the Council's true intentions. Videos of Elysia Prime's destruction circulated widely, showing the horrifying power of the eclipse. Many saw the warship not as a protector of humanity, but as a tool of oppression, one that slaughtered innocent lives without remorse. Council leader Mara Drexel addressed the public from her underground bunker, her voice trembling as she tried to justify the atrocities. "The eclipse is necessary," she insisted. "Without it, we would have perished long ago. Sacrifices must be made for the greater good." But her words fell on deaf ears. Crowds chanted slogans like, "No more blood," and "Down with the Council." Some even burned effigies of Admiral Voss and the eclipse. The rebellion spreading across the colonies found echoes on Earth itself, uniting humans against their own leaders. In the skies above, orbital platforms launched supply ships to aid the rebels. It was a risky move. The Council could easily retaliate. But fear no longer held sway over the masses. Humanity's darkest chapter had ignited a spark of defiance that refused to be extinguished. Chapter 9. The final battle far from Earth. The alien alliance massed near a glowing nebula known as the Veil of Stars. The location was strategic. Not only did it provide cover for their fleet, but its dense clouds interfered with the eclipse's sensors. Ships of all shapes and sizes gathered, representing dozens of species united by a common goal, stopping humanity before it consumed the galaxy. Among them was the Arbiter, whose presence inspired hope in even the most fearful warriors. Clad in shimmering armor etched with ancient runes, the Arbiter addressed the assembled forces. "Today we fight not just for survival but for justice. If we fail, the galaxy will burn. If we succeed, we pave the way for a new era of cooperation and understanding." As the alien fleet prepared for battle, the eclipse emerged from hyperspace, its massive form dwarfing everything around it. Admiral Voss wasted no time issuing orders. "Target their flagship," he commanded. "Eliminate the Arbiter and the rest will crumble." The battle began with a deafening roar. Alien fighters swarmed the eclipse, peppering its hull with laser fire. In response, the warship unleashed torrents of energy, obliterating entire squadrons in seconds. Explosions lit up the nebula, turning the void into a kaleidoscope of light and destruction. Amid the chaos, Captain Solus and Dr. Nyx put their plan into motion. Using access codes stolen during the skirmish at Verdantia, They infiltrated the Eclipse's core chamber, a heavily guarded area housing the planet-destroying weapon. Their objective was clear: disable the weapon permanently, even if it meant sacrificing themselves. "This is it," Solus said, gripping a plasma cutter. "Once we start, there's no turning back." "I know," Nyx replied, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "Let's finish this." Together, they bypassed security systems and reached the weapon's control panel. As Solus worked to disable the firing mechanism, Nyx uploaded the encrypted files containing evidence of the Council's crimes onto a secure transmitter. The data would broadcast directly to Earth and the colonies, exposing the truth to the entire galaxy. Suddenly, alarms blared. "Intruders detected in Core Chamber Alpha," a robotic voice announced. Within moments, armed guards stormed the room, weapons trained on Solus and Nyx. "Step away from the console." One of the guards barked. Solus hesitated, then turned to face them. "You don't understand what you're doing. This isn't about loyalty. It's about survival. For everyone." Before the guards could react, Solus activated the plasma cutter, severing critical connections within the weapon core. A surge of energy rippled through the system, causing sparks to fly and machinery to groan under the strain. Realizing what was happening, Nyx grabbed the transmitter and fled, shouting, "Go! I'll hold them off." "No!" Solus cried, but it was too late. Nyx lunged at the guards, buying him precious seconds to escape. Behind him, the core began to destabilize, emitting a low hum that grew louder with each passing second. Chapter 10. Redemption. Through sacrifice, back on the command deck, Admiral Voss felt the ship shudder violently. "Report," he barked. "The key weapon core is destabilizing," an officer shouted. "We're losing containment." Voss's eyes widened in rage. "Who's responsible for this?" Before anyone could answer, Captain Solus burst onto the bridge, his uniform scorched and his face streaked with soot. "It's over, Admiral," he said, his voice firm. "The weapon is gone. You can't destroy planets anymore." "You fool," Voss snarled, drawing his sidearm. "Do you think this changes anything? Humanity needs strength, not weakness." "It's not strength to slaughter billions," Solus countered. "It's cruelty, and I won't let you do it anymore." With that, Solus lunged at Voss, tackling him to the ground. The two men grappled fiercely, knocking over consoles and sending sparks flying. Finally, Solus managed to wrestle the gun away and pointed at Voss. "You've lost," Solus said, his tone cold. "Stand down or join your ship in oblivion." Voss sneered but relented, raising his hands in surrender. Around them, the crew watched in stunned silence as the reality of their situation sank in. The Eclipse, their mighty warship, was dying. Chapter 11. A new dawn as the core destabilized further. The ship's automated systems initiated an emergency evacuation protocol. Crew members scrambled to escape pods, abandoning the doomed vessel. Dr. Nyx, clutching the transmitter, joined the exodus, her heart heavy with grief over Solus's sacrifice. Outside, the alien fleet observed the Eclipse's demise with cautious optimism. The warship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, scattering debris across the nebula. Cheers erupted among the survivors as the threat was finally neutralized. In the aftermath, the alien alliance spared Earth, choosing mercy over vengeance. The council was dissolved, and its members brought to trial for their crimes. Dr. Nyx became a key witness, presenting the evidence Solus had died to protect. Her testimony sparked a wave of reform, leading to the establishment of a new governing body dedicated to fostering cooperation between species. Though humanity faced challenges in rebuilding trust, seeds of hope took root. Colonies and aliens alike began working together, sharing knowledge and resources to heal the scars left by centuries of conflict. Amid the ruins of the old world, a brighter future emerged. Epilogue. Hope amidst ruins. Years later, the wreckage of the Eclipse drifted silently through space, a haunting reminder of humanity's darkest days. But far from being forgotten, it served as a symbol of redemption. Museums displayed fragments of the ship alongside artifacts from the rebellion, teaching future generations the importance of unity and compassion. Dr. Elira Nix often visited these exhibits, her mind filled with memories of those who had sacrificed everything for a better tomorrow. Though she carried the weight of loss, she also felt pride in Solas's courage, in the aliens' forgiveness, and in humanity's ability to change. As she gazed at a holographic image of the eclipse, now reduced to a ghostly silhouette, she whispered softly, "Thank you, Rin. We did it." And somewhere among the stars, perhaps Solas heard her words, smiling as he watched a galaxy united in peace. The end.